welcome to episode 23 in my radio voice. Recorded on Sunday, the 22nd of 2026, the day after Milan San Remo.
Yes, that's so nice.
We're the Service Course Report. My name is Ed Philbrick. I'm joined by Kurt and Darren Sippy Stockton, otherwise known as the S-Bros or whatever you want to.
The Spro Bros now.
Today we're the Spro Bros, yeah.
As we're both indulging a little afternoon caffeination to get the pod started.
That's right.
One of the ways that we survived racing was we would sell all our equipment at the bike swap meet. And there was one of our regular customers, I forget his name, but he always dubbed you guys the S-Bros. Where are the S-Bros at? Where are they going to be setting up? Are they going to be over here so I can get their stuff quick?
Would that have been Pine? That wasn't was it Pine?
Yes.
The super trippy Pine? Yeah, the S-Bros, man. Yeah, Pine. He was a years-long customer of the old bike stuff.
And he was always there, and he was always somewhere else at the same time, or at least in his mind.
Yeah, Pine had been on a few journeys, I think, in his youth.
Right. So that's where that came from. Huh.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I always continue it on. I don't know if anyone else calls you guys the S-Bros.
Nah, you're right. That was Pine saying that, the S-Bros. That's
I
funny.
feel like that kind of came about during the mountain biking phase of our lives.
Also came back around, the S-Bros.
Yeah. I thought Monk used to say that. Was it S or was it Stockton? Yeah.
Yeah, Monk Dog.
Or
R.I.P. Monk Dog.
KSDS. Yeah.
Yeah. That was Peter Gilling, Quesadillas.
Yeah.
Quesadillas.
Peter the
All right.
Grilling.
Yeah, Peter the Grueling. So, all right, guys, what's been happening? Pod 2-3?
Yep, 2-3. Well, just a reminder, we're on Substack if you feel like reading. Pretty soon we'll be feeding our podcast out on Substack as well. So they've added that as a feature. We're on Amazon. We're on Apple Podcasts if you like to listen to us audio-wise from both those places. If you like video, you can check us out on Spotify. And we have short clips in the full episode on YouTube. We will also be podcasting live from Sea Otter, so look for us there. And we're with heavy emphasis on the Lifetime Grand Prix finish on Thursday afternoon, starting at 9:30 Thursday morning. So
West Coast time. Pacific time.
West Coast.
Yeah.
West Coast.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Otter. Well, we could talk about it in some future episodes coming up. As you know, as I always say, I'm excited just for, aside from everything we're podding, that makes it even better. But just getting out there, getting some grilling going, getting some stars out, grilling under the stars.
Yeah.
Going to be good.
One of the ways that we grow is you share this with your friends and you comment. We're getting a lot of good comments on YouTube. Those comments help us grow, and if you share it along to your friends. So thank you for the feedback. And what's one thing that you guys have done in the bike industry that would help us understand who you are? What's not the most glamorous moment in your bike industry career?
Yeah, well, I got one. I was attempting to transition from, as we talked in a previous pod about transitioning into mountain biking, out of road cycling and into mountain biking, and trying to be a downhill racer and not getting paid yet, but thinking it was my path to go. And through a connection, I got hooked up Peterson Publishing, which published Bicycle Guide, MTB. No, Mountain Biker was the name of their mountain bike magazine, as well as like Road and Track, major publications. I got offered so the editor, Garrett, it was Jamie Polinetti actually, who had taken a job working there, and he got me connected in to write some stuff. And the editor, Garrett, says, well, we can't bring you in on staff and hire you as like part of Peterson Publishing. He's like, but what we can do is, we need like a kind of a shop gopher. We have to weigh all the bikes. They would get a complete bike and they needed to have just the weight of the frame and fork. So you would literally have to disassemble a brand new bike, which, cables and everything, and then put it all back together. Although I figured out a way to do it and not break the chain and kind of like suspend the parts and hang it. So that was my job, and I had this little cube over on the whole other side of, I think it was the 5th floor where all the two-wheel was. And I had to go through a temp agency, Apple temp agency. And this was 1995, I think I want to say. I made $6 an hour. And I still will never forget, I'd never really had an hourly job like that. I worked construction as a kid for JT's dad, and I just remember getting my first paycheck and kind of at least being a little bit excited and couldn't fathom how I had so little money coming in after working so many hours. After tax and everything on $6 an hour, I'm like, did that even cover my expenses to drive over there each day and back? I don't know. But so it was, going down to the workshop, down in the parking garage to get tools and coming back up. So that was probably one of my least glamorous bike jobs. Did lead to good things though.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all connects.
Yeah.
A lot of relationships from that for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. People riding. Mark Reedy, he was there at the time. He still, writes a lot for the bike industry. So, well, what about you guys? Any unglamorous jobs you did?
Go Cass.
Well, mine is a bit more recent than DS in the middle 90s. I think it was 2016, after I had been done with the race teams for a couple of years, and I was putting some events on and doing that, and I got a call from a friend of mine, Lisa Hunt, and she said, "Oh, I got a friend, Ming Tian. He's opening up a rep agency, and it's a Northern California based rep agency. Would you be interested?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I know, cycling," and we had one big brand was our anchor, which was Scott bicycles and the Scott brand, which was 10 years ago. They were doing pretty well. I mean, I guess they still are. They've had a little bit of reconstruction, so to speak. But in any case, I was like, yeah, I can do this. I know bike stuff. And I just remember like walking into bike shops, some maybe that I'd been in, some that I hadn't, in the area. So I had like Sacramento, Tahoe area, and walking into a bike shop. And I never like, "Oh, can I help you?" "Oh yeah, my name's Kurt. I'm a rep for this agency, blah, 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 blah." And like just being ignored, like completely being ignored. "Oh yeah, the manager, he's back there or she's back there, or the owner." And I literally could watch the person cruising around and like keep looking out to see if I was still there and keeping on ignoring me until basically I would leave. It was terrible. I said,
Jeez.
I never felt kind of so low on the totem pole.
They didn't even want to see you. Yeah.
They didn't even see me. And in retrospect, I realized, as I talked to my good friend Chris Smith out in Minneapolis, he said, "Yeah, it's all about those relationships." He says the most successful reps that I know, they've had these relationships for decades. And I thought it was more about the brands that I had. We had strong brands, but it wasn't about the brands. It was about the relationships you had with the retailers. And I didn't have a lot of strong retail relationships. So, that was a bit of a relief to know that it wasn't just me, but it was and the brands, but it was the fact that I just didn't have retail relationships. If it was something else where I had those connections, it probably would have gone a lot better. So,
right.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Much.
Well, I also think that, just a little comment on that. I think it's the reps also need to help build community. So the really good reps in North County, San Diego, or Southern California, they help build community. They're out building trails, or they're fostering the e-bike, e-mountain bike community. One rep I could think of. Then they're also there on Saturday morning when the rides roll out. They might not be going on the ride, but they're there to say hi to everybody. And, sometimes they're standing under an easy up and pitching, handing out their product or whatever, but sometimes they're just there to say hi. And I think, we saw a lot of reps in action when we were young kids. We saw Gary Campbell, who was a great relationship rep.
Campbellissimo.
At Hendrickson's Bicycles in Southern California. And, he was probably the premier Italian 10-speed drive high-end cycling rep with the relationships. And he actually rode his bike with us. He'd get dropped pretty quickly, but he rode with us.
Yeah, he definitely did.
And I did.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Gary Campbell. He was like the first ever, or one of the first ever power bar reps. I got my very first power bar from him in the late 80s. When I was living down in Venice Beach, he's like, yeah, we got these food bars. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you don't have to make a sandwich when you go for a ride. You just put this thing in your pocket. I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. Luckily, we still have, you guys remember, put a power bar in your pocket, go out on a cold ride, and you go to bite in that thing and just about chip your tooth.
I was going to say, on a hot ride, he neglected to tell you that you would also need an entire bottle of water to help get it down if it was hot out. You're like chewing through the chocos anyway.
Who remembers malt nut?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow. All right.
Oh, malt nut.
Well, for me, it was I worked in the evenings at Open Air Bikes a couple of nights a week doing
under the big tree down there.
Under the big tree, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they would have chocolate power bars at the front counter, and it was dinner time, and like I was always looking for calories back then, and I would eat chocolate power bars and do just JRA, just riding along repairs in the back. I think they charged $30 for a simple kind of tune-up, and I would do them. I hope I did a good job. I remember pretty extensive test rides that I would do.
Yeah.
And I think I earned $4.75 an hour doing that.
Nice.
So anyway, Open Air Bikes upstairs was Bike-A-Log, and Bike-A-Log was one of the co-owners of Open Air, and it was this book that was like this thick that the bike shops would get. And so there was all these guys up there late at night entering data, and so they were entering the prices. So if you wanted a Campagnolo Nova record rear derailleur, they would have, okay, this is how much 10-speed drive charges for it. This is how much Eurosport or Eurasia charges for it. And this is, they'd have all the, quality bike is charging this price. And they would put that out kind of like the old MLS for realtors. They would put that out quarterly. And so Bike-A-Log was upstairs, and I think it was quite the drain on Open Air bicycles, that effort into early technology, because that kind of went online at some point, I think, before it went away. But originally it was a book.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned QBP, which I don't know, were they around then? But I remember the early days of QBP. They would send out a phone book catalog every year. Like,
oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That thing was thick, right?
Yeah, all the vendors.
Yeah, before everything was online, right? Because then the prices can change all the time. But they put that stuff in print, and it was like that was it for the year, kind of. I mean, I guess they make some adjustments, but yeah, from the analog days to the digital days, huh?
It's good to have a minimum wage job, I think, when you're, hopefully not like in your mid-20s like I was. I'd say, for you, high school. But what did Chris Rock say about when you earn a minimum wage? The bosses are saying, hey, if we could pay you any less, we would, but we can't. That's like the minimum. So
yeah,
so that's where you're at.
Minimum. All right.
Yeah, well, good.
All right. Well, that's a little of who we are. Anybody need to take a free lap?
Free lap. I need to take a free lap from last week when we were talking about Strade Bianche in the women's race in the finale. I incorrectly called Cassia Niewiadoma Finney, just Cassia Niewiadoma, but she does go by her married name. I guess her and Taylor Finney got married maybe last year. And so the hyphen in the Finney is in there, and that's my free lap.
Right on.
So I'll do my best going forward to get that one correct. Although I still have heard some broadcasters still saying not doing that, but that doesn't give me an excuse to say it. So free lap taken.
Yeah. There you go.
Yep.
Back in the pack.
You guys, any free laps other? Not this week.
Not that I can think of. I think we should move on to rides that we've done. DS, any interesting rides?
I've still been hitting the gravel bike and testing through some different tires, comparing the Gravel King SKs to the Race Kings, but I've just been ripping around Summerland and in the Bluffs and Carp and kind of sticking in between there. So it's been pretty good, actually really good. Some of the trails, it's just so interesting. I guess that's what I love about dirt. You get used to the seasonal side, and now that you're in starting year 2 of your mountain bike re-experience, Ed, you'll get to know it. It's a little more seasonal. Rain ruts appear and then get, filled up and stuff. And so the bluffs out here are very sandy and hold up pretty well in the rain. And it's not as steep. Up behind Summerlin, it's steeper, and we get rain ruts down the middle of the trails, and then it's a lot of easements and horse people, and then the horses completely destroy the trails, and then they harden up, destroy it, and then the horses walk back on, and they make like a powder trough down the middle, and then they get some fog on them. So it's in a better part of that phase. And then one trail I went down that's been overgrown, this one down the side of Ortega Hills just totally cleared out in primo. So I incorporated that back into my loop on Saturday. So that was really fun. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing, just on the gravel bike.
I got a silky saw on Amazon. I had the Falco saw.
Falco,
Falco. You know, these saws that you can pull one
Pull,
direction.
yeah.
So my dad was a botanist. He would be appalled at my chaparral pruning. But anyway, I'm constantly tuning the trails for my own selfishness. But the thing that I noticed is that I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, those saws are not very safe. So they don't quite fold up really nicely. So I think I need to kind of like get a little Velcro
Put a strap or something.
around,
Yeah.
because I cannot have that thing opening. It's quite dangerous.
They are sharp. That Falco I have is sharp.
Especially if you happen to fall, right? Do you have it in your back pocket, or do you have it strapped to your bike?
I've been using it in my cargo shorts, which is extremely dangerous location.
Yeah.
I think it's time for the backpack to appear, and carry some clippers too, because I also think clippers are pretty faster than the saw. So
Clippers work well in certain areas. You can just, and those also go into your pocket pretty easy. Like, they can fit in a pocket pretty easy. And I do
You almost
most
need
of
like a.
no, I was going to say I do most of my trimming when I'm out mountain bike riding. So I have a backpack on. The gravel bike, I'll do work, but I don't carry a saw in my jersey.
Yeah, it seems like if you're carrying clippers in your pocket, you'd almost want like a little holster for them or something with those blades, right? So you don't get
like a
you get simple little tumble and you could have a puncture wound or worse.
A puncture.
A puncture. Yeah.
Get a puncture.
Well, I get impatient folding mine back up, and like if I'm not perfectly folding it, and then maybe I need a Velcro strap around it. Just
if the saw it doesn't quite stay in its groove when you fold it over, because the blades do have a little bit of flex to them.
For precision Japanese technique, I think the sawing action is amazing, but the folding is not precision Japanese workmanship. I'm like, dropping the ball on the folding. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your poison oak situation like down there? Is it bad?
Oh, it's bad. And
yeah.
I've never had poison oak ever in my life, partly because I was raised by a botanist and I can identify it in a hot second. But poison oak is a tolerance level, and if you keep exposing yourself over your life, you can actually cap out and you lose your immunity. And so with my new mountain biking stuff, I think I'm pushing it, because I hit it from time to time trying to ride through stuff,
Yeah, it's hard. You come ripping around a corner and it's right there. You're like trying to lean in. When I was living in Temecula and worked in at Intense Tires, I would go out and test on the San Juan Trail a lot. Drive up 74 is the one up from Elsinore, right? 76 is down by Oceanside, but drive up there and park. And there were days when it was just scorching hot, like 95 degrees up there. And I would ride in a skin suit with arm warmers and leg warmers on, only for the poison oak. Because on that trail you would drop down and it would in the dark areas and it would just like grow out and you would just, it was, you were going to get it. Steber used to carry Windex. He swore that the ammonia would take the oil off. So we'd get done with a ride and I'd see him like Windexing his arm. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh yeah. It takes the oil off. Like, I'm like, I don't know about that. Some other stuff you'll be absorbing, but.
Yeah. I guess you could have just done rubbing alcohol. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, me for rides, what have I been doing? I finally started like feeling a little bit better, getting more frequency, doing little road rides and riding my gravel bike. And I think I went between teaching the indoor classes and riding outside. I did 5 days in a row, 5 or 6. And then I had a small kitchen injury.
Industrial accident.
Kitchen injury on my industrial accident. It was a little un-OSHA approved cleaning of an espresso cup of Demitas, and Yeah, I lost not quite a pound of flesh, but a little bit. So that was
gnarly.
Thursday, and I haven't been on the bike yet, and it's actually healing well. So I think taking a little time off these last few days is helping with that. But we're not quite getting the heat that you guys are getting down south. It's just been like beautiful spring. You know, we got into the 80s up here. Spectacular. So I'm looking forward to getting after it, and it looks to be nice for the foreseeable future. So I was really starting to enjoying it and mixing up, doing a little bit of actually doing a little road riding and mixing it up with the graveling. So my new road project, maybe I'll talk about that on the next one. It's just about ready to rock and roll. So
yeah,
that's
you'll have to take some snaps of that. We'll make sure you heal that thumb up for Otter so we can be shredding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll be shredding regardless.
Yeah, nice. I like that attitude. What about you, Rico?
I did the Sagebrush pre-ride. Sagebrush Safari mountain bike race is coming up a week from today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a 31-mile course that has everything in it. It has the best single track I've ever ridden. I have a theory that off-road vehicles make for good flowy scenarios.
Oh, yeah.
And then Victor Sheldon and his group of buddies come in there and groom it all late winter, get it ready for the race day.
Nice.
So it's got flowy, loopy stuff, and then some slabs, and then climb up Mount Pinos, which I think is 4,500 feet. You get up to the pine trees and the Forest Service Fire Observatory. And then it's probably the longest descent in San Diego County, or one of the longest off the top there. It's an amazing
Sounds
day.
killer.
It was super hot and super humbling. Like, I'm like, whew, you know, I want to do well in that race and really point to it. I did it last year. It's a whole camping experience and everything, and so you got to make sure you're ready for the cold night and get up, and he doesn't start the race until 9:30. So we had the pre-ride at 9:15, but it was in the 80s, and I didn't carry enough food, so I was ready for this so-called burrito truck afterwards that we didn't find. So we went to Frosty Burger in Pine Valley, which is like this retro 60s burger joint.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was good fun, but it's humbling, and I was like, I don't know how hard I can go for 31 miles of that kind of stuff. Like, I'm gonna have to carry a sandwich or something, because I looked at my KJs, and my KJs were like 4,000 or something. You know, like, you're working hard on that kind of course. So
yeah, you're always working hard on dirt. If you're pedaling.
2 gels was not enough. I had a pack and 2 big bottles, and I was starving afterwards. So
yeah.
Sounds
might
like
I suggest
the pre-ride?
Yeah, the Epic brand bison bar. Get that little nugget of meat in there. I just had one of those the other day. Dude, those things are tasty. I would just eat them if they weren't so, Yeah, the bison bar.
Well, the
Get some meat in you.
Sometimes I carry the chomps around. Beef jerky is an interesting road race snack. I don't know. It's hard to know how to fuel yourself for 3
For the
hours.
all-day effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing about that once you actually do the race. Maybe one of
Unfortunately,
these.
it's going to be hot again.
Is it?
Well, it won't be those crazy temps, but it'll probably be 80 or something again. So.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's good that, like I said, good you've done it. So at least you know what it's gonna take out of you. Won't be a surprise.
Yeah.
At least I
Keep
hope.
your efforts steady and focus on being really good technically, getting your shifts up over, like little steep hills, spin up over them instead of grinding, all that little stuff will maybe not make you faster in the moment, but conserve the effort in the moment. That will probably help you later on, and there's so much technique you can do out there on dirt, even with the flight attendant.
Well, and waiting and saving your energy for the 3-mile climb up Pinos, there's a little bit of asphalt that's 1920s Great Depression road maybe or something,
Right.
There's a little bit of asphalt that's mostly gone, you know how that goes, and it's just a long climb, and you've got to save energy for that, because I was like limping up it.
Yeah.
So when is the event?
A week from today.
Week from today. Oh, okay, so next weekend you'll be there. Nice.
Yeah.
So do you go out on Saturday or do you go out on Friday?
go out Saturday morning, get there early. You got to beat Tinker in his motorhome. So there's select good camping spots, but the bros show up with their motorhomes,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're the what do you call those people that take their vehicles way out into the rural setting? What are those guys called? You got those. You got to compete with the guys with all their batteries and solar packs.
Oh right.
Because the e-bike crew, there's an e-bike class. They're
Yeah.
already there to charge their bikes and
Right.
solar it up. So you got to get there early and find your shady oak tree. Usually he has kind of like a little sprint race on Saturday, but I think he's having a fondo, and then there's a spaghetti dinner, which, and everyone hangs out around the campfire. It's classic mountain bike racing, and
Right.
gets a big turnout. Some people cheat and stay in Alpine in the hotel rooms and then
Just
zip in the morning. But I
Yeah.
think on the result sheet it should say C next to your name.
if
or
you
on your
can.
T-shirt if you
Yeah.
can.
An
Yeah.
armband, camp, hotel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stayed at home, got up early, drove out there. Yeah. That's subcategories. I like that.
Well, that sounds like fun either way. It's going to be fun out there. How's your camping setup? Is this a good pre-run for Otter, or you've pretty much got it dialed by now? Or
I feel like sometimes deferred maintenance is my middle name. Things just keep breaking on the van, and I don't know. I got that memory foam pad. Oh, I got it from my daughter. It was from her dorm room or something, and so that thing is in there. I'm like stacking up, like Princess.
Got to
and the
stack
Pea.
it.
I'm getting more and more memory foam. There's nothing to complain about. So
All right,
but
nice.
things keep breaking. So
Yeah. Hopefully nothing vital.
all right. So those are the rides and free lapping. We talked about Chaos and his kitchen injury. I think the main thing is that we had the best bike race around.
Ah, that was just so good.
Milano San Remo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's so what's your big takeaway from that one? So we all see different
man.
things, or stuff sticks with us, and we've got two races too, right? We've got the men's and the women's, both
The men's and the women's.
equally
Just,
exciting.
a broad takeaway is just how good the racing is, how many good people there are. I mean, it's easy to see, especially in the men's, because Pogacar won again, but it wasn't any type of these races where you see him attack once, 50K out or whatever. Well, technically, I guess it was sort of, but, not solo. Pidcock and Vanderpool with him, but I was just like amazed at the level and how good, everybody is. And just that race, I was thinking about when we used to go and do those 100K circuit races at Super Week, and how it's 100 kilometers. And if you want to be up and racing in it up at the front, how it just requires all your attention. Then I was thinking about San Remo and doing that for 180 miles on those Italian roads, just twisting and turning and up and down, and how much concentration it takes to stay at the front and stay out of danger. And you look at, as you brought up, Kurt, 2 of the 3 guys that made the main winning break. Vanderpool got dropped on the Poggio, of course, but both Pogacar and Vanderpool had crashed earlier in the race. So it just shows that, it's spicy. Yeah,
So we're going to
there's
take
one
a
of them.
little liberty and enjoy some of the Escape Collective's coverage. They break down the segments. So I've shared my screen, and you can see that Pogacar probably was the first guy down in the crash. I mean, he probably overlapped with somebody, but you can see the crash on the screen there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got up. He was pretty. Yeah, that was in just a squeeze. I mean, those roads are so narrow, and it's like the peloton's going through. And if in a bend that's that was like whatever, a 45-degree corner or something like that, if it gets 4 feet narrower, that's two bike widths of people.
Well,
So-
maybe with the new handlebar widths, it's 3.
Unless one of them's Vanderpool.
That's
who, as a side biscuit, I was talking, about Vanderpool being one of the few guys to still run the classic drops. Yeah, there's Tade with his torn white skin suit, but
So
it was
It's at the bottom of the Cipressa. He's chasing back on, and eventually McNulty does the hero's work and brings him all the way up.
Right. They just go sliding by the right side. Here they are. They just catch the back. They just don't even slow down.
Yeah.
Look at just ripping up right up past them to get to the front.
At 58K an hour.
Yeah, Vanderpool also allegedly went down. I think there's some debate of when he hurt his finger, if it's in this crash, but Escape Collective is reporting that it was in this crash, and his ride back up wasn't as good as far as draining effort.
Right. Took more where he was. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a part of it.
Then Del Toro takes over.
Right. There's McNulty, right? Just flogging it out. Yeah. I just love that. Yeah. Look at, and then there's, is there anybody that doesn't know what's coming down? You gotta, yeah. And that's Ghana on Pidcock. That Vanderpool's going to have to go right around him. You can see him. Yeah, pretty spectacular. Just in the white jersey, the white gloves, the white shoes. Gotta love the style.
It looks like Filippo Ganna leaves the gap open, to be honest with you.
Yeah. If there was somebody in between. The Cipressa was vital in both races. I mean, that's where the winning break went down in the women's race also. At least made the separation out to go up. I mean, yeah, those skinny roads. But so at Milan San Remo, just such an amazing event. And, as people know, Tadej is attempting to win all of the 5 monuments, San Remo and Roubaix being the 2 left that he hasn't won. And I just almost feel like, I mean, Ed and I were, I had a morning client on Saturday morning, and then I was driving back across to park in Summerlin to ride my gravel bike. And I put it on my iPad, and I pulled up and parked, and I messaged Ed and he, and Kurt, but Ed got back and he was watching. And so you were probably at home. I was sitting in the front of my van, kitting up, watching it on my iPad, watching the racing going down. And it was just so exciting. And the drama that the crash added in, because you never know how the crash affects you, right? You could be feeling good, and then all of a sudden you just doesn't happen. But I feel like for him to win this monument, which is probably one of the hardest ones, and to have that kind of put in his way, and then just that crashed white skin suit that he won in and everything is just like so befitting of it just being an epic race.
Well, he won in the Rainbow Stripes world champion win.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. What did I say?
Well, you just said, I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
But the fact that he's world champion just adds to it. I think
yeah,
it's
exactly.
As important as we roll through the video here that we talk about it, because not everyone's watching on video.
Right.
So here's the 3-man break on the Cipressa with Pogacar, Tom Pidcock, and Vanderpool. And I thought that there was a little bit of acting going on by Vanderpool. I thought, like, he's, when they look back, they wanted to see him struggling, and he was acting, but I was wrong. I think he was struggling.
Yeah. Didn't quite have the legs that day. Even Vanderpool's pre-race quote said something to the effect of, what's going to happen, and if my legs are even 1% off, then I'm cooked, or whatever, when you're out there with Tadej. And it looked like that 1% showed up on the Poggio, unfortunately, because it just would have been great to have all 3 of those guys go into the line. But what a race.
Well, it's interesting looking at this too. Like both of these guys are in bigger gears than him too. Like they're pushing. And it's like he doesn't have the
doesn't have the power,
that push that he normally can go and roll that big gear.
Yeah, because especially like at Tirreno Adriatico the week before, I mean, his winning sprint in the one race and some of his attacks, he had that power to use the big gear. And I think that's one of the things that Vanderpool still has on some of his competitors, is I think his in the moment short burst of power, is still pretty spectacular. Whether he hasn't gone to the short crank revolution and that helps him out in that moment, or maybe just the wider bars allowed him to get more, more leverage a little bit, or maybe that's just what he does well. But he definitely didn't seem like he was looking quite as good as the week before. So it happens, right? And obviously these 2 guys are both on their game.
So Pogacar has been motor pacing and training with Nicolo Bonifacio, who is a local retired pro. He retired in 2014. Rode for Lamprey and a few other teams, and he seemed to know the lines because was known as the crazy descender. And you can just see that Pogacar had the lines down better.
Yeah.
I would say his lines look better than Pitcock's, and that surprised me.
Yeah, his lines were really good.
Yeah.
You could see he was really hitting it perfectly, because I was thinking that there were a couple times too that normally like you're only trying to catch up to or just match Pidcock, but Tade definitely seemed like he wasn't having any problems on the descent.
No, and hasn't been known as the greatest descender. I mean, he crashed in Strade Bianche last time he was trying to,
Right?
put Pitcock in the descending hurt locker. So, he hasn't always been. And then Jonas maybe descends better than Pogacar. So, but yesterday, Poggy looked like the best descender to me, which surprised me. I mean, maybe Tom Pitcock is kind of laying off and not pushing quite so hard because he was
Right.
resting. Because I think he might have assumed he was going to be faster in the sprint. I assumed he was going to be. Well, anyway, we're jumping ahead to the sprint.
So
Also,
here we go.
the pavement looks like the UAE sheiks, jumped in and helped pave
I
the
like,
road.
I
Pavement.
like your theory on that one.
I like
Donated to
these
some
conspiracy
local
theories.
municipalities.
You heard
A
it
little
here.
tinfoil on that one, but anyway.
Little tinfoil.
You and Mel Gibson. Yeah.
So here they are prepping for the sprint.
Yeah.
Well, it's important too how they're looking back because the chase is right behind them. Well, the chase.
Yeah, that was the other
singular
cool part is Wout.
Yeah.
So Wout
Yeah.
went out in the same crash, went down in the same crash that we were watching, that left-hander that Tade did. And it took him way long. He had to get a spare bike. I mean, he was chasing on. Did they catch after the Cipressa, I think, on the downhill before the Poggio? It was a while until they caught, but he got the group, got the front, went over the top, and was able to attack them late. That would be, I was thinking to myself, I go, wouldn't that be spectacular if he was a little closer? But he didn't really force the lead out, Wout, but a little bit. Made him keep looking back.
So it looked like Pitcock was going to poke on the right side of the barriers. And I'm like, I don't like that. I think he should have jumped left in the center of the road sooner. I don't know why he was thinking he was going to go on the barrier side.
Yeah, that was probably his only move of the race that you could say he could have done better.
Well, he needed a bigger gear, in my opinion, but that's just
Yeah. Yeah, we were watching it. You could tell they're in the same gear, but I would wonder if they were in their biggest gear or if they were, or they were pretty close. Yeah, I at the end of the
It
race.
doesn't look like biggest gear to me, but
which would be
Dude.
what 50, 54,
I think Tade runs a
11 on
55,
Pogacar's
doesn't
side,
he?
right?
I think he runs a 55, that custom
UAE
chain
on,
ring.
on Dura Ace, and then Q356 Pinarello, they're on SRAM, so they would have the 10 cog. But they do.
Oh, right.
SRAM
So
does
maybe
do
they were
some
just
custom,
slightly, yeah.
Yeah, they do some bigger rings for their pros for sure. So
Yeah, so the men's race was spectacular. The women's race was spectacular also.
yeah,
Cassie Niwi-Adama went to the front on the Cipressa and just,
Who?
she had tried a little bit here and there, and then she just went to the front
free
and
lap.
just,
You need to quickly take a free lap.
Take a
Cassie
free lap on that.
Niwi-Adama, Finney, was pretty spectacular. She went to the front and made the race happen on the Cipressa and broke it up. Got that group that separated. But even just like I was saying, just the racing was exciting. The level I was watching, as they kept talking about Lorena Wiebes, who won it last year. And how, she was the sprinter's game. She was getting yo-yoed a bit and catching back on and yo-yoed a bit, and was recounting me of usually my own experience trying to make it over the hill, which was yo-yoing, the sprinter trying to get on and doing that, but watching how well she was doing it and not trying to make any bursts and trying to stay in the gap and keep on top of her gear. And then when they would slow down, make an effort to get back up. And she ended up, I believe, winning the sprint, behind the breakaway. She came in, she had a teammate, Lotto, so the eventual winner.
There was a really bad crash on the descent, which seems to be fairly copyrighted in the coverage because we're not finding it. But pretty bad crash on the descent that was very graphic.
Yeah, it was a rough one for sure. Coming down, yeah, it was interesting that they're not, or maybe they're not showing it something out of respect. Oh, here's the sprint right here coming down, right?
well,
And so the other girl on there were two women from UAE, and they were positing that the woman who led out for her teammate, who ended up eventually getting third, could she have slowed down a little bit and forced a lot of if that's how you pronounce it correctly, her hand. But I think at the end she was just stronger. Lotte. Yeah.
Well, what, 156 Ks maybe it was. So it's definitely puts a little fatigue in the legs. But for me, I thought it was cool that she's, she had kind of a rough year. Kopecky did last year.
Yeah.
And this one, like, she's back, like she's a classics rider. She was, quote, going to be a tour rider after third in the tour 2 years ago. But no, like, she's back.
Back to the classics.
And SD Works, like, to your point, yes, they have the best sprinter in the world in the next group, her teammate. So Kopecky, like, she made that selection, and they had all the cards to play, right?
Yeah.
She's like, well, I can ride this perfectly for me to finish. I'm the best sprinter in this group, and if they all balk, guess what? The best sprinter in the world is on my team, and she's right behind us. So that was like master.
Yeah, they had him.
And not only master class, I wouldn't say in tactics, but you still got to have the legs to play the tactics.
To finish it off.
Yeah, they played it to perfection, right? And they won both of those sprints. So that was good to see. And just to see the joy and jubilation in Kopecky's face, right? Two-time world champion, right? Has won some of the biggest races in the world. And then, unfortunately had an off year on the Olympic year, but then came back. So it'll be interesting to get all the players together on form and see where the women's racing is going, because that was super exciting as well. And and I would say to go back to the men's race that was so exciting. But you mentioned it, DS, but Wout was third. It's like, is Wout, is he back? Right? You don't fake it through Milan San Remo for 180 miles and get third place. So that's cool to see coming into the Northern Classics, where he's going to be. Maybe Vanderpool just had a bad day. He was just slightly off, or as you mentioned, yes, maybe he was 1 or 2% off, and we can't have that. But seems like everyone's flying. Pidcock's riding well.
Yeah,
we haven't even spoken about Mads Pedersen. He won the sprint right behind Van Aert too, right? Yeah. So these guys, it's like,
for him coming back from being injured, it's nice to see all the big players ready to go.
So let's just hope they stay healthy and so good.
I think it's amazing how fast those guys can come back from injury. I remember when Vanderpool came back one year at San Remo, and you're like, how can he, like, his first race back? We didn't even know Pedersen was going to be ready to race, and like he was competitive. And Wout, I don't mean to bag on Wout, but he's been looking a little heavier and just a little slower, and maybe he's kind of peaked out just a little bit. But man, he was like right there. So.
He looked good. Well, it'll be fun to see. It's cool that Wout's got the form and he's coming back, ahead of the biggest cobbled classics coming up. Yeah. It'd be nice to have him in there. You just want to have the biggest protagonists all out there battling it out. Yeah.
So we had Cape Epic. We got a full South African podium with Matt Beers and his partner winning today. We had Mid-South with the controversy about lead vehicle photography blowing up the internet. The side-by-side got in front of Sophia and Paige Onweller in the finale. And so all the privateers went out on the internet, including Keegan getting on the Cool Down podcast with Alexi Bermulan to bag on photographers and side-by-sides and live coverage. And I was like, woo, be careful when you bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
You guys all used to praise Mid-South for having the amazing first live feed, a little patching together Instagram. We were thankful when Lifetime, has really invested a lot of money, including, unfortunately, a guy with a Starlink stepping out in the feed zone and taking out the second place finisher. You got to be careful when you're bagging on media coverage and complaining about them, because we all desperately wanted to see live feeds in gravel, and now we're getting it, and you're upset that the side-by-sides are a little too close. So that's been the topic of the racing world, or the gravel world. The live coverage was horrible.
Oh, really?
It really was. Mid-South was kind of groundbreaking originally with their early to Instagram live feed, but it just didn't translate this time around. It took them several minutes to figure out who won the race, and
right.
So
because when you sent that live link, Ed, I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna watch this a bit, and it was a band playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm like, Ed sent me a link to a band like playing some twangy twang music, you know. I watched it for a bit and then I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll watch the highlights. But yeah, that's a great point you make about like biting the hand that feeds you, because I watched a little snippet of that, the cool down, you know, and I think it was Keegan Swenson was saying, oh, you know, they've got these big prize lists. I'd rather them take some of that money and put it towards safety. Well, that's easy to say when you're the best gravel racer in the world and probably one of the highest paid, right? But, you know, to your point, you were talking about the privateers. There's a balance. There's a learning curve. Hopefully nobody gets hurt in that. But, you know, a lot of this, you know, I would say maybe you put Unbound aside a little bit. It seems like Lifetime has the resources to hire crews that have some experience in this, but I think they're also learning. You know, this is not like you can take moto riders from the ASO or, you know, even the Tour of California and throw them in a gravel race. It's a different beast.
And you have dust to consider just for one.
You have dust to consider. You have courses that are not, you know, like, oh, there's a little line off to the side of the road. I'm going to jump over there, right? It's not a defined paved circuit. So I think that there's a balance there.
Well, maybe no side-by-sides, and they should all use e-motorcycles. Look at Cape Epic. The coverage there is amazing with those e-motorcycle followers, and sometimes they're on an actual e-bike. But I think Cape Epic is doing a great job. I think Traka with their e-motorcycles doing a great job. I think the side-by-sides are a little overkill. They probably affected the Unbound result with the drafting. You know, an e-motorcycle gives off less of a draft. I was laughing because Keegan kept using the word slip. He's all the slip. And talking about slip, well, anyway, we'll get to that later. But anyway, I think there's a fine line. You know, you need to train the drivers. You need to train the media. Maybe you don't have 3 guys with a camera. You need to have 1 guy with a camera and 1 guy who's doing safety, because the driver can't. If they're going to do the side-by-sides, you need a little more emphasis on safety and navigation. And then, you know, Keegan makes a valid point that those drivers need to have driven the course multiple times, because the drivers were lost in that scenario. So.
And that's just a lack of planning. That's all that is, right? And that's just, you know, getting them there a little bit earlier. So, well, hopefully we'll continue to see live coverage and it'll get better and better.
Next up will be a Lifetime Grand Prix. At the Otter.
Well, but next weekend, Ed's got Sagebrush, and I just
meant with the live coverage.
With the live coverage. Just throwing out the last bit of our racing coverage here, thow. So event number 3 of 5 in the Grasshopper Adventure Series is next weekend as well. So
nice.
I'll be out there with that one, and it's like 90% road and about 10% dirt, but road bike dirt. It is Sonoma County pavement, so sometimes the dirt's better than the pavement. But it's the one event that they do that's segment style. So since it's more road and they're out on open roads, they've gone to a segment format rather than racing from you know, start to finish, which makes it safer and also makes for a little bit more social ride. So whether we pod one more time before next weekend or not, but we'll have that coming up after next weekend. Yeah,
can't wait.
Looking forward to that.
All right, so that's racing. Does anyone have a what went wrong?
Yeah, I do. My what went wrong is a follow-up on a previous what went wrong when everybody in the men's race was crashing at Omloop at Nieuwsblad is, and I had brought up, you know, something in these bikes or the equipment, you know, Cassie Niwiadama Finney's crash. Thank you. Around that right-hand corner, she was leading the breakdown. Or I can't remember if the racer from Visma was off the front at that point or if she attacked from that crash. But Cassie was leading the group down, and she just was going through a right-hand corner, looked the same pitch. Everything is a dozen she had already taken, and her back end just slid out, and then it caught, which I don't know that how many times I've seen that bad of a high side, but it caught, and then it pitched her over the handlebars. So she's going through a ride at probably 35 and it catches and flips her over, and then, you know, all the crashing ensued. But I bring it up again of the what went wrong in the bikes. It's like, you know, she won the Tour de France. She's a classics winner. She's like one of the better descenders. She goes to the front descent. It's not like she doesn't know how to handle her bike. And yes, you're tired at the end of the race, but it's just weird how, top racers, everything's good, and then it goes horribly wrong, like no warning window. So, you got to consider rim depth, radial, or if you want to call it vertical compliance of the wheels and things like that, usually when you see a slide and a high side like that. But that's my continued what went wrong is what's going on with the bikes and the techs that they're using to go fast that are having these, having these major crashes that are not only affecting people's health, but the outcome of the races as well.
Yeah, because the racing's not changing, right? The riders are only getting better. They're racing the same courses, so it is. What is that factor? We'll keep searching that. You were saying, Ed?
Well, I think the promoters can make those little barriers a little bit safer. There's there's some beauty in the Italian roads and in the danger factor. There's some beauty in that, but also you can see on some of those turns where they could probably use some padding barriers and so forth. And I think in general that the promoters are probably the biggest factor to improve safety. I don't think we as a group think that improving or making the bikes safer is, and you're not going to change team tactics and radios and stuff like that, but you can pad a telephone pole.
Yeah. But if there's 100 telephone poles and you pad 99 of them, guess which one someone's going to crash into? And it still doesn't take away from the fact that they crashed.
Yeah, they still crashed. I mean, it would take away from the one racer that flipped over, maybe the extent of the injuries, but still, so it's a two-prong, I agree. But even still, if they've been going down the Cipressa forever,
right.
Yeah.
Without those crashes. Yeah. So hopefully it seems like our friend Eric Richter, who is the head of marketing at Mondraker Bicycles, he had actually put up something after Get Wevelgem, post up on LinkedIn and talked about that, about how so many of the bikes are designed around a rider going fast in a straight line. And as he said, not that he knows anything, which he obviously knows a ton, but, maybe there's something to that. Yeah, so we'll hopefully see. Yeah,
it was good to see wider tires too. I think when we look at the photos, we're seeing a lot of 30s, and I'm dreaming if I'm seeing 32s. I hope I'm seeing 32s, but it just looked like we're seeing wider tires in general. That ought to help on that fresh aspect from the sheets.
Right. Yeah. So that's what went wrong.
All right. So we have any blinded by science, which is generally known as our tech category or segment?
You guys?
I got one, but it's going to run straight into the amateur because it covers both of them. So I don't know if you want to. Looks like you might have something. The wider tires. I mean, my blinded by science is that finally top three in the race, right? In the men's race, let me clarify. Pogacar, Pidcock, Van Aert. Two of them crashed. Right? Pogacar crashed, won the race. Van Aert crashed. Chased back on, he got third. They both had gloves on. Pidcock got second. He didn't crash. He didn't have gloves on. But Mathieu van der Poel, who famously rides even in cross, unless it's below freezing, he doesn't wear gloves. So those guys, they actually wore gloves, which was smart to me. But then the thing is why did Van der Poel not wear gloves? And Ed, you found this image, which I want to share. That bloody knuckle there. If you look at his knuckle there on the left side, it's not.
It does look like it's got a. Oh yeah, that does look.
There's
pretty,
a bit of a.
There's a chunk there. There's like a slice.
There,
yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Could that have affected him? I mean, it also looks like some road rash and maybe some bruising on the forearm, or that just might be pavement there, but so. These guys are wearing them. He's not. That's my amateurs. Why does a champion as good as him continue to not wear gloves? Could that have possibly affected the outcome? It could have, but I mean, I always say man, when I had race teams, I put it in the contract. You crash not wearing gloves and you mess your hands up and you can't race. Guess what? We'll start paying you again when you come back. But that was your fault. So. That's my amateur there for
Yeah, and I think
for the day.
for our general listeners that aren't familiar, the young generation doesn't seem to want to wear gloves. It's a style factor that Vanderpool's setting the trend a
Right.
little bit. But there's some school of thought that you cool through your hands, that your hands are important for staying cool and keeping your core temperature down. You'll see Remco sticking his hands in a bucket of ice before he starts a time trial. You'll see a lot of the riders not wearing gloves. I think the other thing is it's just feel and sensations. These
Yeah.
guys are all about feelings and sensations, and so like you can, it's like unprotected sex or something. They can hold their bars better. So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know what all the reasons are, but it's a trend. And you'll see a lot of the younger generation on the local rides here. I never see gloves, so
Yeah.
It's just like, for me, it's like putting on a helmet. When you go on a ride,
Yeah.
put on the helmet, put on gloves. Well, I guess we'll keep an eye out, and who knows if Pogacar would have been able to get up and go if he hadn't had gloves on. I would love to
Right.
see pictures of his and Wout's, the palms of their gloves after the race to see.
Yeah.
some
Something to
blinded
think
by
about.
science that I'm always preaching is motor pacing. All three of us did a lot of motor pacing. My best results come from motor pacing, and Pogacar did motor pacing with Nicolo Bonifazio, who I talked about earlier, having the private lines on the Cipressa and the descent of the Poggio. He did a lot of motor pacing to get ready, to figure out how to jam up the Cipressa and the Poggio. And I think that motor pacing is some amazing science that you see it leak out on Instagram a little bit. You see how much some of the riders are doing it, but I don't know if the local riders in San Diego County or wherever you guys are encountering road riders, I don't think people realize how effective it is. And so I think it helped him win.
Yeah. Well, and it also helps you get speed. I mean, from everything else, think about obviously the physical benefits, right? You're riding at that race speed. You can pull off the motor. You can go back in. Also, think about him going up those hills at race speed. You're going to hit the corners differently. Now you can take him on the motor. Who knows exactly how he's utilizing it? Maybe getting up to speed and then taking the corners by himself, just so you got that flow, right? You got that familiarity. When he gets on the Poggio, he's probably done it 20 times, knows all the breaking points and everything. So good. I mean, you're chipping away for small percentages. Who knows if that can just be enough, to make a difference. So good for him. I like that blinded by science. Nice grab on that one.
Yeah, I mean, apparently it was enough.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Any amateur moments in the last week?
Well, I can tell you an amateur moment that I almost wasn't going to talk about it, but I have to, is that I made a bad decision to one, as I'm doing some tire testing. My bad decision wasn't clipping my 29 by 2.1 front. As you remember previously, I'd clipped a 45C Gravel King SK and I liked the way that it felt. So I wanted to do my 2.1, but Supercross was on Saturday night. And I also wanted to watch that. So I brought my project home and I was watching Supercross and clipping and watching, and clipped a hole in my tire.
Amateur.
Such an amateur move, I know. Zell will probably watch this and then be like, I don't know if I'm replacing that one. But yeah, so that was my amateur move. So this morning, I had to mount a new tire before my ride. Luckily, I had a backup, so all good in the hood. But that's my amateur. Yeah, don't clip tires, and also watch Supercross that you're really into, and it's exciting. Could lead to disaster.
I would think you don't want to clip tires and do anything else other than clipping tires. You can
Yes,
watch those
there you
fingers
go.
as well, huh?
Maybe sip an espresso, but that's about it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So our favorite segment to wrap it up with. Well, we got two more quick. We've got to get done in an hour here because we just need to wrap up and get on with our Sundays. But the positive
Yes.
Pete, I'm going to go with McNulty and playing
Yeah.
a role. But I also just was thinking that Jorgensen also brought back Wout. So McNulty
Yeah.
did the work. So two Americans, paying it forward. I think Poggi is paid back McNulty before, maybe in Montreal. But I like seeing the Americans do the dirty work and be in the engines and pulling both those guys up on the Cipressa. So positive Pete to the American riders
Yeah.
for locomotive and doing the work.
Yeah, I like that, having a major outcome on the race.
And they have to be there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. So, yeah, my positive, Pete, is how they went. The Pulte team went from the retro kit to they did it. So if you're looking at this, the shorter guy whose head is still in the photo, Gianni Bugno, the only rider to ever lead the Giro from the day one to the finish, wore the pink jersey the entire time.
Yep.
So you've got the old school 90s Pulte kit here, and then what the team
green.
wore. Yeah,
Safari green and yellow.
Yeah. And so another rider that raced for them was Axel Merck. So here is that kit
the skinny
in action.
red. Dude, just look at the wheels. If you didn't look at anything different from the bike, but just look at those egg beaters, the skinny little tires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're 28s, maybe 32s, all the cables hanging out there. I mean,
20 or 32 spokes you're talking, not width.
Not tires. Yeah, spokes.
Yeah, the egg beaters.
Yeah. And as
shallow
much as
rims. Look at those flat rims.
As much as a pain in the butt as internal brake line and Di2 wire routing is, boy, the bikes look a lot slicker.
Don't
here.
they?
So, yeah.
Especially without the front brake on the head tube. That just cleaned up the whole front of the bikes. That was a big complaint. But I remember when they moved those off, I'm like, you know what? We're going to look in the future and see those nice no brake on there and like the look of that. You know,
so
which
that
I
kit,
got to say I do.
one.
Yeah.
And you look at
Pulte.
that one. Look what's on the shoulder of Axel's kit, the golden arches.
Wow.
Yeah, McDonald's there. Yeah, which is so that's a slightly different version than Bugno's wearing here. But yeah, pretty cool. And then here is that is a great shot. The team at the sign-in. So there's
currently
the current stuff. But it's fun to see this. You know, we saw the Uno X do a 7-Eleven kit last year in the Ardennes Classic. So it's fun to see this. It does, you know, it's a little bit of history.
Are cool.
And that's a sponsor that's been supporting cycling for a very, very long time. So
yeah, they've been in the game a long time.
Shout out for the retro kits. I think it's fun.
I look forward to the La Via Claire retro kit. I don't know who's going to pull that one off, but I think that's one of my favorites. So.
Remember those? I love them with the battery pack on the back of the jersey. Looked like they had those. Wonder, I think, was the battery sponsor.
Our last closing segment, the Good Ideas Files. I think KS has really got a good one here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, and I think this goes to the gravel footage. We need more drone footage. The drone footage on Milano San Remo was just spectacular. It gives you better depth of field. It gives you ideas on the speed, on the tightness of the corners, if it's a constant radius, a decreasing radius, how the riders are setting up, lean angles. It makes it for someone who's raced, which is all of us, or people that have raced, or if you haven't, it takes you inside and it gives you this feel that with moto cameras or helicopters or fixed cameras that you just couldn't get. So, hats off to the drone operators and making that happen. And I'm hoping that we get to see more and more quality drone footage in bike racing because it's awesome.
I agree. It's game changing. It's really game changing. The same for motocross. They've been using the drones, but for cycling now to get it, I mean, just to be able to follow along and see that was spectacular.
I think the last limiting factor is we just need to see it in 4K. As soon as it's 4K, it's a done deal. It'll be great.
Yeah.
So that's episode 23. We're going to wrap it up now. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We welcome your feedback and your comments. And we'll see you soon.
All right.
See you at the races.
Yes.